Well, with that, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful day here in Batavia, Ohio, as we get set for round 7 and 8 of the Pro-Am Karting Championship of Motorsports Country Club of Cincinnati. My name is Taylor Burris, and alongside me today is Jackson Lambros, as we are set for qualifying here today in our category, starting off with the 206 Masters out on track. And Jackson, we are here at probably one of the most beautiful facilities in all of karting and getting set for another great day of karting action here on Kart Chaser.
Going to be an absolute show for you today, running the newer layout that innovates this integrated. We had a couple names for it in briefing yesterday. Taylor, I think we kind of settled on the hook or the boot, but very, very good opportunity for overtakes there, especially when you consider the drafting capabilities and pack running capabilities we're going to see in these 206 Masters. But again, phenomenal weather here, as you guys can see on your screens here and can feel for everybody listening to us. Trackside should be a phenomenal day for MCC karting.
Absolutely. Currently, right now, it is David Galani at the top of the leaderboard right now in your 206 Masters, right as we talk about. Matthew Lyda, currently your points championship leader with Evan McCorkadale, 2 wins so far to the season. Not here with us today in the 206 Masters is McCorkadale, but some other championship favorites like Alan Elwood, who talked to him a little bit yesterday. Looking forward to going out here, making some small adjustments to his kart to be able to just get that race win for the first time this season. He's off to a great start as he has just set the fastest lap of the race so far, but he's got to worry about championship competitors like Matt Geis, Derek Hastings and company. Mike Doty also in the hunt, Mark Kirk as well as some of the favorites to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Matthew Lyda, your points leader, currently sitting P8 in the running in qualifying with just under 2 minutes to go.
So again, great shout there from Taylor with Matthew Lyda out in front in the championship standings, but very much in striking distance is Alan Elwood, just under 60 points separating those two, and with about 300 points maximum on tap for weekends. It would take just a couple of poor decisions from Lyda and some great execution on track for Elwood to level that field and, if not, flip the script. And it all starts right here. Got some kind of pair running on track right now, as the draft is very, very beneficial in these 206 motors. And everybody trying to maximize that little extra toe going down the front and back straightaway.
Absolutely. And of course, the biggest thing that we talk about when it comes to 206 racing, it is all about keeping up that momentum throughout the entire course. You get a little bit bogged down, you're going to lose your incredible lap times here, and you're going to be not starting up at the front of the field like we're seeing for some of our drivers right now. In fact, if you look at your top 16 drivers, it's a 4-second gap from your pole sitter of Galawina all the way to Decker sitting 16th. But then you see those drivers who are right there in the hunt, your top 3 by about 4/10 of a second. Everyone else is 6 or further 1/10 of a second back, as we are closing in on the final 10 seconds left to go here in qualifying for your 206 Masters. So this will be the final lap for some of them. Some of them, though, will be getting the checkered flag as they come across the start-finish line. Checkered flag is out for Scott Monison and Mike Doty. They will end their qualifying runs along with the 29 of Renee Moeller, Dan Monison, and a couple of other karts coming around. Daryl Dillon, Mark Kirk as well to end their qualifying, including Brian Decker. So this is the final lap for your drivers inside the top 9 to see if they can find their way at the front of the field. Here comes Alan Elwood. He'll be the first one to get across the start-finish line. He is just under 2/10 of a second as they come to the start-finish line out of the hook and across the front straightaway, where it is critical to get that power exit as he will cross the line. Elwood, does he improve? No, he does not. What about Galawina? No, so far he is going to be comfortably sitting with the pole position, a 58.076. And that will conclude qualifying for your 206 Masters. Galawina, Elwood, and Hastings, your top 3.
Plenty of hands up there as a lot of guys electing to not even do that extra lap as they'll duck into the pits. But it's Galawina, Elwood, Hastings, Lyda, Geist, Wiener, Davis, Gorman, Fire, Doty, Monison, Moeller, Monison again, Dillon, Kirk, and Decker to make out your field of 16. We'll get a quick break here as the 206 juniors and cadets, the combined field, will be out on track in just a couple moments' time.
At just only a couple, so they're going to combine both the 206 junior and 206 cadet category. Drew Schneider, the only cadet driver racing with us here today, so he'll join the junior category in racing today. And of course, with that 206 junior, currently right now it is a fierce battle between Adler Klein and Tegan Schneider, your 2 winners so far this season. And then of course in the cadet category, Drew Schneider picked up a win at the season opener, but Hayden Lawson has been your current points leader. With Lawson not here today, that's going to give Drew Schneider the chance he needs to go and try and get some valuable points in the championship hunt in your cadet category as we start the first opening laps here for your 206 junior and 206 cadets as they head out onto the circuit heading into turn 1 and 2. This circuit here, of course, we're utilizing the National Short Circuit, which is 12 turns, 3/4 of a mile around here, but a lot of great passing opportunities. So normally we'll head down over towards that hairpin right at the exit here, but instead we're going to take the cut through to then make the way up through the S's before approaching up to the top of the hill that we're seeing right now as we enter into the hook.
Really great blend of high, medium, low speed corners here for these karts. That first high speed left-handed corner into that very fast first sector. You've got that inner loop section in the middle, and then that now iconic hook section towards the end with that seemingly never-ending left-hander. Was joking with Taylor yesterday, seeming like it was a mirrored version of turn 1 at Singapore for all of you Formula 1 fans, but a lot of different opportunities on track for what you're capable with, for what you're comfortable with. If there's a place or an area where you feel like you've got your kart best set up for, you're gonna have plenty of opportunities to flex that muscle. But Leighton Mold quickest on track right now, 58.657 with just over a 10th gap right now over Tegan Schneider. Homer Heyman in third.
Homer Heyman is currently sitting that P3. We touched on that, but also a couple of things to keep in mind is you got to be careful with your braking. The braking zones also, which we talked about, due to the fact you're carrying so much high speed, these brake zones are a little bit more shorter and have to be able to be careful with the weight transfers when slowing these cars down. You just can't brush the brake pedals as often, and you have to just instead let it just smoothly go into that corner. Don't stomp on it. It's all about that smooth inputs on these karts for the 206 to keep the RPMs up and to keep that engine going for them with these 206 Briggs & Stratton. Changes right now happening at the top of the leaderboard. Tegan Schneider currently sits there now with the new fast time of the race so far. Leighton Mole sits P2 with Isaiah Maxey right there sitting P3. Adler Klein having a good day so far in qualifying with a P4 running, and Will Wilkie rounding out your top 5.
I think you made a really phenomenal point there on weight transfer, and for those newer to the karting world, that kind of raises eyebrows because there's no suspension, there's not a lot of things that could, I guess, on paper be used for weight transfer. But when you don't have, when you're essentially riding the kart and the entire chassis is acting as suspension, everything is being thrown around, and that can be worked out in driving technique, in tuning. There's plenty of different ways to approach it, but it is one of the biggest aspects of this because of how small the size of the vehicle is relative to you, Taylor. You're essentially riding the kart, and the minute you get rack and pinion steering, suspension, a differential, yes, that would help weight transfer, but at that point you're just driving a car. So that's one of the big differences. And I'll tell you what, Homer Hayman making a huge difference on track right now with 57.959, just 0.016, over 100th separating your front row right now.
Yeah, of course, one of the things is trying to make sure you don't overheat these tires. So drivers are going to try to also be careful with how much tire pressure they put in these karts, because these are going to go throughout the entire day. Pretty much you're on that one set of tires for sure. So you got to be careful with that. But you touched on with the weight transfer. If you think about it with the kart, you're the biggest thing that can be that weight transfer to help get that kart going in the right positioning here as we're closing in. Tegan Schneider now goes up to the top of the leaderboard with a 57.893. Checkered flag is out. Vince Krzyzewski finishes his lap time. Drew Schneider, also Trevor Perfetti moving up a spot. Brant Hutchins as well will conclude his qualifying. So we have just about 9 karts still left to go around the circuit in order to finish up their qualifying session here today. Tegan Schneider and Homer Hayman are looking to see if they can find that little extra to see who will come out with the pole position here in qualifying for your 206 Junior and 206 Cadets. Heading down into the hook, they will now work their way through as we watch them enter into the tip of the hook. So far, we're looking to see as across the line, the 25 of Leighton Mole will not improve. Here comes Tegan Schneider and company. Can he find his way to improve? The answer is going to be yes. He will improve to a 57.81. Can Homer Hayman respond as he crosses the line? No. Tegan Schneider will be your pole sitter here today in your 206 Juniors. Drew Schneider, of course, in 206 Cadet will be your only driver in that category. He'll starting P9. It's Leighton Mole, Adler Klein, Isaiah Maxey, Will Wilkie, William Richards, Cooper Mole in your top 8.
Running out the field, Drew Schneider, Ryder Nabbit, Trevor Perfetti, Vince Krzyzewski, and Brandon Hutchins, the tail end of your field of 13. We're not even going to catch a breather here because it's time for the 206 Seniors in just a couple seconds time. Stay with us.
And away we go for your 206 senior category as they head out on for their qualifying efforts here today. A couple of things to talk about with the 206 seniors going into this race. We've had pretty much a different winner every single round of the championship. Of course, Brandon Helton, AJ Roderick, Ben Lyda, and Braden Heber, who currently is your points championship leader going into the 206 category. And as they work their way through, there you see them working on towards the top of the hill, heading into the hook. We have a lot of drivers here in this 206 senior category, 9 drivers, Heber being one of them, Tanner Gorman, Addison Ianello, and of course, one of the national drivers that we see regularly competing, James Overbeck, coming out here to race in your 206 senior category. If you want to see a driver who can put on a stellar show for us here today, James Overbeck in that number 48 machine is going to be the one as they come across the line to start their first flying lap to get things started and see how this all plays out for our competitors. Also, Gavin Degenhart competing as well. He's going to be doing the double duty in both 206 senior and KA senior later today.
So a very wide spread of different winners here in the 206 seniors, but it has been an eerie consistency at the front of this field because Brandon Haber already has a almost 200-point lead in this championship. Wyatt Deegan currently running 4th on the outlap. You can stick an asterisk in that as we don't really have any green flag laps running right now. But man, it is already a big breakaway from Brandon Haber out in front in that 8 cart, and Garrett Hagerman actually right there with him. 848 points for Deegan, 844 for Hagerman. Ben Lyda down at 755 points, only halfway home in this championship with 2 more weekends, 4 more rounds to go. But the rest of this field, Taylor, has to get a move on very quickly if they have any chance of catching your championship leader here.
Well, one way to do that is currently try to be ahead of him in the standings for qualifying. Addison Ianello and Gavin Degenhart are currently at the front of the leaderboard with a 57.997 for Ianello as they work their way up to the top of the hill. There you see your top 2 running in that positioning. And there you see behind the Tony Kart of Garrett Hagerman and company as they try to see what they can do with that progression of the draft here. Starting to slow down. You got to be within a couple of tenths to really get a full field effect of the draft to help you get that speed you need. Make sure those RPMs hit the ticker just strong enough to keep you up with great progression through this qualifying effort. Across the line, James Overbeck goes up to 2nd. Ianello still maintains pole position with a 57.45. 57.47 for James Overbeck in P2. Braden Heber, though, he responds nicely with a 57.91 in 3rd position.
So again, talking about that effect of drafting, hard to give you a number here on track during qualifying, but definitely who we're watching right now, Haber in chase for one of the Tony Karts, I believe. I mean, that's absolutely in effect. Talking to Kart Chaser showrunner Xander Clemens yesterday, about 8 tenths for the 206s is going to be your magic number for when you get in that bubble for being in drafting range. But I think another very, very huge factor we've got to talk about here is the tire wear as this day progresses. Track is hot, straight exposure from the sun as we've got a switch at the front of the field. Overbeck going to lead. Ianello here with a minute to go in 206 senior qualifying, but plenty of left-hand turns. That's going to be absolutely cooking the right-hand wheels. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see if we see some drivers, see some teams decide to flip sides of those tires and maybe at some point in the afternoon jump over and maybe have a different pair do the take a majority of the load there, Taylor. Going to be very interesting to see, and I think that could be a very big aspect of this strategy, especially as we move on to pre-finals.
It certainly could be the case here. We'll see how that works out with the strategy calls and the setup adjustment that they'll make. And so we see one driver hit the curbing a little bit right there. That looks like to be trying to get the number of that Burrell Art Kart right there we saw on screen as they come across the line with under 20 seconds to go. No changes up towards the front of the field. Degenhart does improve on his lap time, does not make any gain in the running order. Same thing with Perfetti and Tanner Gorman. I believe that was Skylar Perfetti who went up on two wheels heading into the tip of the hook as they now enter the back straightaway, heading over towards that little cut through. And as they do so, you see the Coyote machine of Overbeck still leading strong right there, trying to see if they can get a little bit extra bump in order to try and see if James Overbeck can take pole position here. Of course, we've seen James Overbeck do some amazing things here at this very circuit not that long ago here, and looking to see if that can continue in his favor with racing at the MCC as they come out to get the checkered flag one more time around across the start-finish line. Addison Iannello looking to hold pole position, and as they do so across the line, it will be Iannello of 57.201, followed by Overbeck, Wyatt Deegan, Braden Heber, and Garrett Hagerman, your top five. Degenhart, Perfetti, and Gorman round out your 8-car field.
Saw some very big draft pairs there, and that is not too much of a shocker when you see the nature of these engines. We're talking about the importance of that. We're going to jump over to throwing gears, though, when we come back for Junior Shifter Qualifying here from Cincinnati.
So there's three basic pillars for data analysis. One is the data that we extract from the dash and look on the data station. The other thing is the feedback from the driver. And the last thing is the visual, like when we look at the driver on the track or we look at an onboard camera. Here at PSL Karting, we use a lot the SmartyCam 3 from Motorsports. This camera is basically connected to the dash, and it gets all the data from the dash and it synchronizes the video already for us. So every time we use this camera, we take the SD card, put it on a computer, and then we are able to analyze the drivers side by side on the data. We all know that drivers, they learn faster when it's visually shown to them side by side what's the difference, right? So with the SmartyCam, every time we put on the data, we're able to see the drivers side by side on the track. So here, for example, you can see that Diego is taking a curb and our other driver is not. You see that one driver is oversteering and the other driver is pretty much straight coming out of the corner. By showing this to them, they're able to absorb faster. And you can even play the videos simultaneously so they can see how they're performing through the track.
Welcome back to Kart Chasers coverage of the Pro-Am Championship here at the MCC. Taylor Burris here along with Jackson Lambros as we get set to go qualifying in your junior shifter category. Currently have a total of 3 karts entered in this category. Leighton Mole, Nico Kotowski, and William Richards, as we currently have one of our shifter drivers out there on the track, the 25 of Leighton Mole. And of course, this is a great stepping opportunity for drivers who want to pretty much not go maybe into certain categories like the X30 category, even the KA category, and want to go straight into shifters. And a great way is to utilize the junior categories, which we're seeing more and more of happening. We see it a lot happening over at the Indy Karting Challenge a couple of times. We see it a lot in the West Coast racing as well. Mostly over with the Pro Kart Challenge, as well as also some other tracks over in California, like Winchester. We've seen utilize this track and style of car, and you got to give a big round of applause to the Factory Kart group, who was able to help really showcase the junior kart category during the Supernats last year in 2024, with the help of a lot of great future up-and-coming stars as they come across the line right now. Leighton Mole currently sits fastest lap in your junior shifter category.
I think you make a phenomenal point there, Taylor, with that. I don't want to call it a shortcut, but a great opportunity for guys to kind of dip in and get an earlier taste of shifter karts instead of, you know, having that be the top of the pyramid. Got to talk to Massimo Valiente, who was a front runner this season in the Burley Product Super Cup up in the Pacific Northwest, and he was driving absolutely everything, as low as the Briggs, some tag driving in the middle, and at the end of the day jumped in the shifters and ran that as well. And I had to ask, because it's such a different kind of pace, kind of physics between all of those karts. I asked, does that kind of throw you off your rhythm when you go in something as fast as the shifters and then go back in the Briggs, and he said it's kind of a feedback, not a feedback loop, but I get positive feedback going both ways. I'm able to find a lot more grip in places and have a lot more courage when I jump out of the shifter, go back into the Briggs, and then I feel like I have a better way to carry, a better mental approach to carry momentum, which is always important. It's an added emphasis in the Briggs, but I have a better mental importance set in my mind when I jump back in to the shifters. So I think it refines your driving craft. It makes you a better, well-rounded driver if you get all of those different opportunities. And I think that's why we see so many guys jumping in junior shifters, even if that means sacrificing a little bit of seat time in the fixies.
Well, if you think about it, you look at the three types of categories that we'll be dealing with today. We have, of course, the Briggs 206 package, which is more about momentum, being smooth, consistent, a little bit more with weight transfer, and very small mistakes in order to lose a chance of a great finishing position. And then, of course, you have the KA category, which we'll see happening in a little bit time. With a minute to go right now, it is still Leighton Mole. But with the KA category, it's a mix of both of what we're seeing here with the shifters, that balance of momentum and that full raw power that those karts will have. And with the shifter karts that we're seeing right now with both the junior and the pro shifters later on today, it's all about full aggression, attacking the corners, making sure you have a tight V entry, almost diamonding the corners a little bit with a lot of aggressive braking and aggressive steering and even some brutal acceleration that we'll see off corner exit for some of these categories. So it's amazing to see. This is one of the few tracks, club tracks championships that we see that showcases those three styles of karting, and it's great to see that MCC is still going to be continuing to do that and progressing to get the chance for everyone in the area to come out, try this style of racing. With 30 seconds to go, though, Leighton Mole has been showing some incredible drives right now in qualifying. 51.069. He is currently half a second faster than Nico Kotowski, who, granted, is in no right of his own, one of the top young future superstars, as well as he is currently sitting P5 in the Stars Championship Series. He's also finished out the US PKS Championship in P6 in the micro category.
Watching him work his way through the hook right now was so fun. Getting to watch him rip in the Tag GPs for Rock Cup USA at the Florida Winter Tour. We'll see if he has anything for Leighton Mole at the front of the field as he crosses the line. He improves once again, but he's unable to close that gap to Nico Kotowski, or excuse me, to Leighton Mole, who's just now coming out of the hook for the final time. Half a second between the remainder of this field and Leighton Mole, who finally works that 25 machine to the line, just trying to gain some insurance, and he finds it. Nearly an entire second up, a 50.559 for the 25 of Leighton Mole.
Absolutely a great drive indeed for Leighton Mole. He is going to be one to watch for sure here, and seeing if he can even come close to what some of the pro shifter times are going to be here in this later on. That's about to happen. So a 55.59 for Leighton Mole in that number 25. Next on the docket is the pro shifter, and we got one driver who's going to be making their shifter debut here. We'll touch on that here in a few short moments as we get set for that. There's your full field running order for junior shifter qualifying, as the field will get set and head down into the pits, make any adjustments for them. And here we go for the pro shifters. It's a small group of drivers here today. Normally in the pro shifters, Nikolai Dukov is your championship leader. Riley Pegram, your only multi-time winner, due to the fact that she is out racing in the Michelin Pilot Challenge at Virginia International Raceway with her dad. They're going to have a little bit more fun, so this could open up the door for some drivers to maybe have a shot of getting up the running order in the championship, or even coming home with their first win of the season. One driver who's looking to do that is Ben Lyda. He is making his pro shifter debut here today at MCC, and talked to him a little bit last night regarding that, and he is indeed very excited. He didn't actually get the chance to do any testing yesterday because he was still at work during the day. But the thing is, he's excited to continue developing as a driver and pushing himself in different ways than before. It's, of course, going to be very different than what he's used to, and he knows maybe he'll be surprised with how his results are going to be. But a huge step as we take a look at the track map here once again. This is the short national course. So normally we would take that big loop off of turn number 4 into that tight hairpin we see on a regular basis. But instead, we're taking the short cut through of turn number 5 before we take a half of a S's before of turn number 6, turn 7 as we reach and approach the top of the hill before we enter into the great passing opportunities of 8 through 12, where a lot of drivers can easily make that mistake, and we could see drag races to the finish line as they rocket their way off turn 12 here on this 12-turn, 3/4 of a mile circuit.
Going to be very cool to see what kind of mad science we see on track with guys experimenting. And I'll tell you what, maybe the Micron 6 can help unlock that data, the latest and greatest from Micron, and finding out where you can get those extra tenths. You can get one now at shopakr.com, official sponsor of Kart Chaser. Finally starting to get going here for Shifter, as we will take track for the big guys here, as there's a little bit of a hesitation on track. I'm loving the Hawaiian shirts here for the Luau 50, the kart race and endurance event we also have going on today here in Cincy.
Unfortunately, the Luau 50 did not get to go through today, though, Jackson, unfortunately.
No!
But it doesn't mean we can still have the spirit of Hawaii with us here in the middle
There we go.
of Ohio here. So let's we got to say we see a couple of the drivers from the Trinity Karting Group getting themselves ready to go and enjoying a little bit of Luau spirit. And it looks like one of the Bailiff boys was out there in his Hawaiian attire. Gotta love it here. And great to see everyone out having a good time for some great barbecue, hopefully later on tonight as they celebrate a great day of racing, as we see Safa Haddock and company heading out onto the track in their shifter qualifying session. And we're going to say, I have to say, out of all the tracks that we race at here on Kart Chaser, MCC, when it comes to just some of the action with shifter karts, is so incredible to watch because of all the high-speed areas that we have, as well as those tight corners that we'll be seeing, especially in the hook as they make their way through around to start qualifying. A total of about 7 or 8 karts are what's scheduled to compete in your shifter category. 6 karts, actually, is the number we're looking for as they work their way through. We are picking up a couple of karts that have worked their way up to the top of the hill. Safa Haddock in the 291 machine. Right behind him, it looks like to be the 39 of Chase Gilhart. And then we see a couple of others work their way up through the field. The 507, the 100 of Doug Duff. Paul Rozetsky as well, as here he comes of Doug Duff across the front straightaway and across the line. Here's your time of 49.07, the one to beat from Safa Haddock. Doug Duff moves up to P2.
Showed us some really, really good pace in the first weekend of this season. A Sunday podium. Safa Haddock III was a no-show for rounds 3 and 4, but is trying to pick up right where he left off. Chase Gilhart is in second right now, just a little bit further back, 0.187 the gap, and then you look back to your championship runner-up for the time being. Doug Duff still trying to light the burners in that Hundo kart. Same too for Fred Robertson, and there's a little bit of congestion right now with Duff and Robertson. I think there's a little bit of I don't want to say congestion there because they're not within striking distance of one another, but trying to find the right part of this racetrack to keep your nose clean, to maximize your lap time and not have distractions, any disruptions in front of you. And with these being the fastest karts on track, and in theory having the most that could upset your aerodynamics with turbulent, dirty air, I'm not saying that's a make or break, but it's a very real thing in these karts. And with these having the most power, having the highest top speed, that's going to be one of the biggest factors here.
It really is here, and of course you got to be careful with the braking zones that you're going to have to be focusing on. In fact, one of the most important things is setting up your corner entries on this lap here to set a blistering qualifying pace as we keep an eye on them coming out of turn number 12. You're carrying so much speed on this corner right here from turn 12 into turn 1 because you can really let it go right through here, then you have to get on the binders on entry to get that pace, kind of park it right there in the apex of the corner before getting back on the accelerator as quickly as possible to make that run and go through the gears quickly. Gearbox management will be another main importance for shifting here with the shifter carts as they try to get through the running up to the top of the hill, and so far everything seems to be working in the favor of our driver. Gilhart now goes to the top with a 47.296, and right as we see that,
Doug Duff
has an issue right here with Doug Duff, has to loop it around and stalls it. He'll try to get it pushed back and going here momentarily.
Looks like he just got a little bit too much curbing there at the toe of the boot, and the whole thing went around. I was seeing some blood in the water there, Taylor. It looked like the back end was really jumping around coming into the entrance. He's clearly been struggling with setup, but I think in that hunt for the extra 10th, he just bit off a smidge more than he could chew. Chase Gilhart still out in front, 3:12 the gap to Safa Haddock the third. Ben Lyda now entering the fray just a little bit further behind. Fred Robertson up into fourth as we see the checkered flag coming out. Safa Haddock coming to the line, now unable to close that gap. Ben Lyda is going to need a monster lap for this to be anywhere close to possible. He comes to the line now, or excuse me, Fred Robertson cannot close that gap as Ben Lyda is working his way. Fastest lap for himself, a 48.514. Is it going to be enough this time? By more insurance for Chase Gilhart. It won't be enough for Ben Lyda, and Chase Gilhart is going to lead the pro shifters off from the front for the pre-final.
Really great drive right there by Chase Gilhart. Ben Lyda on his shifter debut. Not a great, or a really great way to kick it off with a top 3 in qualifying as well. And Doug Duff, unfortunately, has a little bit of work to do to try to get that kart fixed and ready to go. But with that, we now move into our KA categories, KA Masters, KA Juniors, and then the big show, the KA Pro-Am, which is a lot of great things up for grabs here. I got to check on a couple things with regards to the KA Pro-Am Championship with the KA Seniors, so I'll get back to you with that. But we're getting set for our Masters. There you see the Juniors lining up right behind, as well as also the Mini and Micro Swift categories that will be racing here today.
So KA100 Masters getting set to go here. And it is 7 full-time drivers in the championship right now, and it's all about the Kushers out in front. Andy over Chris by 42 points. Hasn't been a single weekend where one Kusher hasn't been on the podium. Damian Jennings in third at 9:57. Neil Hamilton in fourth with 9:17. Still plenty of opportunities to grab some points up for grabs, but it is going to be very interesting to see if anyone can catch the Kushers, and if anything, which Kusher is going to be on top.
Absolutely. It's always fun to watch those two go at it because there's times where you'll see Chris or Andy, they'll just go back and swapping back and forth, have a little fun with each other, but still great driving camaraderie.
So getting set to go here for KA100 Masters. We'll step away for just a minute here as we wait for the track to go green. And that moment is past. Time to go qualifying here for KA100 Masters. First to the two strokes out on track.
Here they come out onto the circuit right now, your KA Masters category. And as they work their way through, heading over into turn 4 and 5, in through the cut through before approaching the S's. These KA categories are by far one of the most popular categories you'll see racing throughout the national level as well, whether it be Stars, United States Pro Kart Series, SCUSA. You will definitely see the KA categories out there showcasing some of the biggest and brightest stars of karting, and we see a lot of great racing action here amongst them as they work their way through the running to start their opening lap here today at MCC. And this type of car here, you're going to have to be different with different driving styles as well. You got to be careful with a lot of driving with the trail braking into the corner. Not really want to mash the throttle. Let that braking get eased into a little bit to make that corner through. It's all about showing a little bit of aggression with the corners, but also being smooth and consistent to keep some of that momentum up. But the good news is, if you do make a mistake, you still have that power from the KA engines that help them be able to progress and make the runs if they do lose a little bit of time, compared to with the 206 engine, where if you lose that momentum and with the issues, you will basically fall off the cliff in a sense with your time or your positioning.
As you mentioned, Taylor, easily one of the most popular tag engines on offer here in the U.S., used throughout club, used throughout regional and national levels. But it's the KA100, which actually stands for Karting Australia. Hats off to Kyle Cuthbertson for getting that lore. But running about 22 horsepower, running at a pretty peppy 10,000 RPM. So lots of power on tap for karts this light. And again, this is kind of that good middle ground for those trying to reach shifter as their end game.
Absolutely, as the field works their way through. Currently, it is Chris Kutcher at the top of the leaderboard once again with qualifying as they come across the start-finish line of 51.711, and now he improves it by about a tenth of a second to a 51.6. His brother Andy, 51.8. David Galowino, who we saw earlier racing in the 206 Masters, sits P3 as he is trying to see if he can improve. But your top two have about a half a second advantage over the rest of the field right now. So they got some work to do to try to see if they can continue to expand upon their pole position and front row start.
I'm going to be very curious to see if the Kushers do a swap right now, because Andy's out in front in the 296, and he is punching a pretty big hole right now for Chris behind. And I wonder if that's maybe about a tenth and a half of time being saved there. You got to imagine that there was some kind of game plan being distributed here, but with 90 seconds to go in qualifying, maybe we see a little bit more teamwork in play. Maybe we see the two swap positions, or maybe this is exactly what the game plan was. Maybe Andy has it geared a little bit more for acceleration off the line, and Chris has the legs on the straightaway, and they're kind of towing one another out to the front of the field. It's certainly working right now. Half a second over David Galowina in third. Damian Jennings not even in the conversation right now. A second and a third separating the two as they continue to pedal their way down into the hook.
Really good run right here between the two Red Speed karts as they snake their way in through off the exit of the hook into turn number 12. Right there, I'll have to say, Jackson, if you got the chance to watch some previous races happening here at MCC, when they come out of the hook right there into turn number 12, we're going to see a lot of drivers making mistakes, either going a little bit too wide, as we now see a little bit of a trade-off.
There's that swap.
Now as Chris Kutcher takes over that positioning. He's now going to tow his brother Andy around the circuit here for a brief moment or two in the closing seconds in qualifying in your KA Masters. But that's where we're going to see a lot of contact, a lot of beating and banging, and drivers going off to where one driver who could be our leader going into the hook could be 4th, 5th, or out of the race coming out of the hook. So that's going to be one to watch here as we get set for racing action as they work their way through. Time is about to expire. This should be the final lap that they are about to do here as they come. Checkered flag is out. Who will be able to set pole time here in KA Masters? Across the line is going to be Chris Kutcher with a 51.6. He does not improve. And as they work their way around, this will conclude our qualifying action. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, it's time for the Mini and Micro Swift category next on Kart Chaser.
You know, I'm really starting to like this go-karting thing.
Yeah, me too. Oh my gosh, can I show you this cute dress I just got?
Yes, of course. Oh my goodness, it's so cute.
I just love shopping.
I love shopping too.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, did you guys say you like shopping?
Of
Yeah.
course.
Well, dude, I have the perfect place to do that at. ShopPayKara.com. At ShopPayKara.com, you can get free shipping on orders $200 or more. You can get anything you want, like MXC rims, gloves, rib vests, shoes, anything that you need, all at ShopPayKara.com.
Who is he talking to?
No idea.
But we're gonna have to check it out. Sounds like a great deal.
Sure does.
Florida kart racers, you asked for it and we're going to bring it. Introducing Florida Karting Championship, FLKC, a brand new racing series coming to Florida in 2026.
Welcome back here as we are once again racing here at the MCC, the Pro-Am Karting Championship, as we're closing in on pretty much the penultimate round before round 7 and 8 later on in October, as we get set to go racing once again with qualifying about to kick off for your micro and mini Swift category. We'll touch on the micro Swift category, and let's be honest, no one has been able to stop Jack Katowski in the micro Swift. Currently has won every single event in this championship, and looking over in the entry list for him competing today in the micro and mini Swift category, Jack Katowski, once again in the micros, looking to continue on with win number 5 and 6 as he looks to do so. I have to say, though, for some drivers out there, they're going to have to try to do a little bit of work if they want to have a shot at him. And meanwhile, in the mini Swift category, Drew Schneider is your points leader with 3 wins to the season. Jackson Frank also picking up a win this season so far as we work our way through around the circuit and get set for opening lap here in qualifying in your micro mini Swift category.
So if karting is chapter 1 to your journey in racing, we're looking at page 1 right here. The split classes right now, all running the IAME micro engine, or excuse me, mini engine, with the micros running just a little bit more of a restrictor on it as, a little bit of contact. I believe that's one of the minis going around there. That wasn't Kai Park in the 182, was it? A little bit of contact there, bumper to bumper, but yeah, we'll find out in a moment. He's able to get it going once again, though. But with how little power these are making, I mean that in a phenomenal way, as it's the perfect entryway into karting. But you've got some brave and bold kids behind the wheels of these karts. It's almost always a pack racing kind of environment. It's always a great show, Taylor.
It really is. And these are the kids that are between the ages of 7 and just about 7 and 9 years old. Maybe about 10. We'll see a couple of them still stick around before they step up into the junior categories. Of course, probably not page 1, I would have to say, though, Jackson. That would be as we have one kart goes around up at the top of the hill right there. Goes a little too wide. One of the Burrell Art TKG machines trying to get the number off that one with the light hitting it as he comes down across the track. That's the 141 machine of Sam Hornish. No, not the IndyCar driver who we've seen compete. Nope, this is a different Sam Hornish as he works his way around. Has a little bit of work to do, but hopefully can keep it out of the green stuff and stay on the pavement.
Track is coming at you very, very fast here, especially in that third and final sector. I think that's why we're anticipating so many mistakes. If you're driving, not off your mirrors, but doing the shoulder checks at some very intense parts of the race, especially once we get that run to the checkered, just a minute of breaking focus here. You're constantly turning, constantly checking things. Everything's coming at you so quickly. And that's why I think we're going to see some guys get caught up with errors. And I think that's why we saw that error with Hornish in the 141, as things are getting a little bit scrappy here. Just trying to find that optimum part of the racetrack. But it is Kai Park setting the pace in the 182 Mini, a 55.126 over Katowski in the 92.
Yeah, so right now you have your two pole sitters in both your categories right now, 1 and 2 in qualifying at this moment. Kai Parker in the Mini Swift category, Katowski in the Micro Swift, as we'll keep an eye to see if who's able to improve on anything. Wyatt Huntsbarger currently sits P2 in the Mini Swift category, or the Micro Swift category, along with Brogan Reen, who is sitting in third. And then, of course, it's Min Lewis and Drew Schneider in your mini category as they work their way around into the hook. We're watching on with Katowski and Parker. And so far, really good lines that they have holding on here as they whip their way through the S right there, coming out of the hook with 1:20 left to go on the clock. Kai Parker does not improve. Katowski does not. How about Min Lewis, though, improving on his lap time? Really good drive for him as he works his way around the circuit.
Haven't really talked about him too much, but he is right there in contention, especially in the minis right now, as the lone micro out on top. Jack Katowski is keeping Kai Park mighty honest right now. 0.138 the gap between the two. They've kind of diluted out in front, so those two not going to be helping one another in push or draft. And with 45 seconds to go here in the mini micro qualifying, we're going to have to see how guys can navigate on their own here at MCC.
Right now behind the driver, that's Min Lewis behind Kai Parker. Those two are trying to work their way through. Katowski is a little bit further back. He has Drew Schneider right there helping him behind as they come across the start-finish line. This will be their final lap for some of them as they work their way around the circuit. And Drew Schneider moving up a spot to P3 with him with a 55.850 ahead of Min Lewis. Wyatt Huntsbarger crosses the line. We'll see if anyone else can get to the line before the checkered flag. Currently, that's Sam Hornish and the 16 machine of Brogan Wren. Hornish gets across, but for Brogan Wren, this will be his checkered flag, his final lap that he's on, currently sitting P3 in the micro category. As here comes your leaders up to the top of the hill. That is Kai Parker along with Min Lewis and company. Around they come through the exit of turn number 12. Here comes the 5 machine of Griff Heyman, who we've seen competing in, or seen really competing in other categories. Across the line, no improvement. Kai Parker improves to a 55.106. A great drive for him, as he will be your pole sitter. Jack Katowski, your pole sitter in the mini category.
Wyatt Huntsbarger just coming to the line here. He'll settle for 5th in the 3 cart. Great little scrap there in the mid-pack, though. Drew Schneider and Min Lewis going back and forth between the 111 and the 143. But man, a phenomenal battle there. We'll step away for just a moment, but KA100 Jr is coming up here from MCC. A lot of great outfits being thrown here for Luau weekend. And they're getting set up off track. If you want to get yourself suited up for on track, you can get yourself a brand new Sparko fire suit at shopakr.com, official sponsor of Kart Chaser. Getting set here to go for KA100 Jr Qualifying, one of the bigger fields here in the KA classes at MCC. Thanks so much for spending your Saturday with us here in Cincy. Jackson Lambros in the commentary booth alongside Taylor Burris as we're watching the KA100 Juniors take to the field for the first time. Nico Katowski out in front, 11:32 over the 1,070 points of Alder Klein. Alex Kusher in the mix as well at 980. He's in a battle in the mid-pack here with Robert Lash, 960 points. You can tack an asterisk in that championship order. I believe we have one dropout round, so we're not truly going to see where they lie here until the end of round 8 in the final weekend. But man, it is a plethora of Burrell ART carts getting us started here for KA100 Jr Qualifying. Taylor.
Well, this is the home of Trinity Karting Group, and Trinity Karting Group, of course, as of 2025, has switched over to the Burrell Arts this year, and really going to showcase that. So you're going to see a sea of red amongst the drivers as they get themselves ready to go, coming up for their first flying lap. Don't forget, this is the free coverage that you're watching here on Kart Chaser for qualifying. If you want to see the pre-finals and finals later on this afternoon after we finish up qualifying in KA Junior and the KA Senior, don't forget to subscribe and follow. That's only $9.99 a month to catch all the biggest events in karting, and we still have some great action here as we are on a doubleheader weekend here on Kart Chaser with the Route 66 crew up there for their racing action at Dousman, Wisconsin at the Millwright. Catch Justin Prince and Kayla Vieska on the call for the action there this weekend. So you want to see some great karting action throughout the day, make sure to tune in here on Kart Chaser as we get closer and closer to some more great and exciting action later on at the end of the month. It is one of the biggest shows in X30 competition, the Miami Grand Nationals at the Trackhouse Motorplex. Catch all the action on the final weekend of August, the 28th through the 31st of August, before we go into Labor Day.
Always something for you, whether you like watching the regional stuff or the national stuff. But for anyone wanting to watch some of the best in the Midwest right now, stay tuned, phone a friend. We've got a really good show coming up for you once we get into the pre-finals and finals today from MCC. First green flag laps starting to hit the board here. Alex Kusher setting the pace early with a 52.441. Homer Heheman right there in pace, as well as we'll see the second round of green flag laps coming through. Robert Lash now getting some gains, a 52.263, still half a second back right now from our battle for the lead out in front. Alex Kusher versus Nico Katowski.
Yeah, those two, of course. Nico Katowski has picked up 3 wins this season. Homer Heyman, one of the other winners so far this season in your KA Junior category. Robert Lash looking to try to find his footing in today's action. Ben Gleberman, who we've seen competed in most of the season championship as well in your KA Junior, also looking to make improvement as Homer Heyman moves up into P3 in qualifying with just under 2 minutes to go.
So Nico Katowski doing double duty this weekend, has to transform from Briggs Nico and go over to KA100 Nico mode here for qualifying. And I don't think it's challenging mentally. These kids are racers. They're doing their study sessions. They're going over their data, and they're doing everything to be as fast as possible in both classes. I think it's just more of a physical blockade in terms of maximizing pace throughout the weekend, especially when we consider it is a hot and humid August day here in Cincinnati. We're pulling some really, really high G's through some of these corners. So I think it's just dealing with that physical fatigue for a lot of our guys doing double duty this weekend.
It certainly is, but one thing to keep in mind is he's actually running the shifter category and the KA category, Jackson. So 2 totally different styles of racing as we keep an eye on. Right now with Batavia, Ohio right now, the temperatures right now we're cool this morning. They were in the high 60s, low 70s to start off with, but we're going to approach the high 80s to low 90s as we progress. So the track's going to get a little bit slicker, a little bit greasier around as we get through further and further into the afternoon. There is no rhino line around this circuit like we've seen at some other events, like we see at the Indy Karting Challenge in Whiteland, or maybe we saw some other events like at the Quaker City Quake with the Stars Championship. So that
Rock Vegas
line are really not going to come. Rock Vegas also is going to be another one happening, but we don't really see the rhino liner here. That's going to help these karts stick to the corners like we would normally see. So it's all about how the car handles around these circuits. Without that, finding different grooves to help improve upon certain points of aspects of the race. Checkered flag is out for Nico Katowski, a 51.094 full time for him. Victor will go in second. Homer Heyman rounding out the top three, as no one else really made some big gains in this qualifying session on their final lap, except for Katowski, with improving to about a 0.2 of a second advantage over Alex Kutcher.
One incident under investigation, the 863 of Ben Glaberman. That's for avoidable contact. We'll keep you posted to see if anything comes to the 863, currently running in fifth. Homer Heyman to the line to see if there's any improvement there. Can't find it. So it'll be Katowski and Kusher leading us to the line for KA100 Jr.
And with that, we are down to one. It is your KA Senior Qualifying session next here on the docket, and it is going to be one of excitement. Currently only two winners so far this season, Will Steele and Isaac Gardner, your only two winners in this running. Looking over into your senior category, we have a total of 17 entries competing. Will Steele, Braden Heber, some of the ones to keep an eye on as well. Isaac Gardner is looking through the running order of the standings or in the entry list. Do not see him racing here today. Gavin Degenhart, Addison Ianello, who we've seen also competing in the 206 category, is out there. Wyatt Deegan, Emerson Blatt, and Shane Hambrick, some of the ones to keep an eye on as well in today's action. Ryan Miller as well.
So good mix of guys, but again, Will Steele has been the one to beat throughout the course of this season thus far, and it is almost a 200-point gap separating himself and Ryan Miller. You got a good group of guys who are about 200 points within. So again, anything can happen at this point in the championship with a drop round and with, again, anything being able to happen in the world of racing. But it is going to be very interesting to see what Will Steele can do in the 975 for the remainder of this season.
Looks like a little bit of issues for one of the Trinity Karting Group's Burrell Art machines, trying to get the number off of that, but they're heavily taking a look at the engine a little bit. Same thing with the 912 Max Klein. Just a quick check to make sure everything was okay, but there seems to be some underlying issues for that one Trinity Karting Group Burrell Art right there at the tail end, at the end of our camera shot right here. As we are just now seconds away. That's the 925. That's Natalia Stallman. And Natalia, yeah.
So it looks like that still hasn't been able to get fired just yet, as we now see the green flag for KA100 Sr Qualifying. No issues as well for the 912, as they'll get out on track, and no drama for Natalia. So we are all good for KA100 Sr.
Start our opening run here, and we'll determine how the qualifying session will go for your KA100 Sr categories here. Keep an eye to see who is going to be able to make some runs up through the running order in qualifying here today. A lot of drivers we'll see from the Trinity Karting Group as well, as this is their home track. In fact, for the bailiffs, it is literally a couple of steps away from their house. This is what's so unique about this track. For the bailiff family who owns this facility, their house is literally just only a few feet away from this track. So this gives the bailiffs, who are some of the main top contenders in shifter and other categories racing on the national level, come out here and will do as much testing and working on their karts as best that they can, along with their entire Trinity karting group as they work their way through in qualifying. And just as a reminder, after this qualifying session, we're going to take a break here today for about 45 minutes or so. We'll be back with racing actions at the top of the hour for pre-finals and behind the paywall. So don't forget, $9.99 a month, you can catch the pre-final and the finals of today's action, along with the finals and pre-finals of the Route 66 series that's happening as well this weekend, along with other major karting events happening throughout the rest of the year as we head the way to Las Vegas here in a short few months. And across the line, Logan Mueller sets fast time with a 51.166 as your current pole sitter.
Very close gap up in front between Moeller and Steele. Marcus Batchone, Max Klein, and Shane Hambrick coming across the line. It is very close up in the top 5 right now, pretty much first through 5th, all within a third of a second of one another, as the gap is razor thin, 0.027 between our front 2 runners. They'll switch with Rush Gary now leading this pack of 3-4 karts going through the hook. A lot of TKG karts here in this field as well. Not too much of a shocker, as Taylor mentioned earlier, this being one of the home tracks for them, and another major reshuffle here as some sign language trying to figure out where they're sorting out here.
How about a big gain right there for Wyatt Deegan and Emerson Blatt, moving up into the top 5, picking up 10 and 6 spots for the two of them. Great drive for them as they have a significant gain in time. Also, Gavin Degenhart moving up a couple of spots. Shane Hambrick breaks into the top 10 as well with his lap time.
So again, a lot of guys trying to find that perfect lap. Bankers are already in at this point in the race. This is where you can really let it rip and leave it all out on track to try and get yourself as deep in the field as possible. Some people really trying to maximize karting. Look at Mueller at the front. He's ducking as much as possible, trying to punch as tiny of a hole in the air as possible, maximizing that straight line speed. It's working. A 51.166 still keeps him out in front, but Will Steele right there, 0.027 remains the gap. Big gain there from Tyler Prestel in the 417, working his way up from 8th to 3rd.
Saw one kart right there go into the dirt a little bit as they come through the S's, now up to the top of the hill. And so far, we're seeing Mueller doing everything he can to run. Now we'll see an inside move right there. It looks like to be Prestel in the 417, and the 937 of Logan Mueller will lead us right here. A little bit of a hand gesture. That's the 954 that comes across the front straightaway here. They come across the line. Who can improve on their laps? This should be their final lap, and no improvement inside the top 2, but Tyler Prestel moving up a couple of more tenths to gain some laps as he works his way through. As your top 3 here are working together significantly to make that final push on this final lap.
And it's Rush Gary, I believe, in the 950 here, leading that trio of TKG machines, working on to the back straightaway. A little bit of a kick up of dirt there from one of the Trinities. No shakeup as we work into the hook for the final time. Gary started at the back of this pack. He's shown pace. He's worked his way to the front and says, I've got enough in this kart to lead you guys. Is there enough to see a time gain, or has the teamwork of the TKGs proven to be enough? Side by side across the line, further back between Prestel and others, it's Mueller with another time gain of 51.166, but nobody able to stop him. Will Steele comes to the line, will not be able to surmount him. Tyler Prestel in 3rd, with Wyatt Deegan rounding out your first 2 rows.
Absolutely. Rush Gary, Emerson Blatt, Addison Ianello, Marcus Batchune, Gavin Degenhart, and Dante Rodriguez, your top 10 competitor. This will conclude our free coverage today with the qualifying. We'll be back here at the top of the hour, so just about 40 minutes before we get set for pre-finals, as somebody went off for a little bit of a ride right there. Who is that? That is the 21 machine, or actually the 924.
924.
We just talked about her. That's Dante Rodriguez, one of your top 10 competitors going off.
Looks like that thing might be stalled, and I think it was just carrying a little bit too much speed and had some help from somebody else and got shipped and the entrance of the hook, and is just going to dismount the cart and try to do self-service.
Absolutely. Well, with that, this will conclude. We will be back at the top of the hour, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, for pre-final and final action here on Kart Chaser. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back here at 12 o'clock.
This broadcast is the sole property of Kart Chaser Group, LLC. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of the images, audio, or accounts of this event, in whole or in part, without the expressed written consent of Kart Chaser Group, LLC is strictly prohibited. Thanks for watching.